All right, let's check. I see those green dots. I'll forever be paranoid about that. So, it's another one of these. Last Saturday, when last we left off, my group was in the middle of fighting the Scorpion King boss that I had made. The boss of this first level of my 6 level kind of mega dungeon fashioned out of rooms that I had sketched for a drawing challenge forever ago. The fight was coming pretty quickly to an end, regardless. I think I spoke last time about how there were some mechanics of the boss, one mechanic in particular that I intended to be like scary, and I feel like it kind of fell by the wayside. This like if it stings you 3 times because its acid venom is so corrosive. If it stings you 3 times, your body just melts. But if you heal, it undoes a little bit of that. That didn't really end up mattering. He wasn't stinging enough because it was him, and he had some giant scorpion minions who were also stinging and supposed to count, but those guys got stunned, which is okay. If a player uses their ability and helps and it's helpful, I consider that fine. But it did mean, okay, so only the Scorpion King stinging, that fell by the wayside. People still got hurt. Scorpion King was doing a bunch of damage. When we had left off, they had finally crunched through all the scorpion, like giant scorpion minions, which each time one of those was killed, they had dropped a swarm of normal sized scorpions. And I had been having the Scorpion King eat these other scorpion swarms every once in a while as like their legendary resistance. Because the way I do legendary resistances is I have it cost the boss something, because that's how MCDM does it. And I'm a huge Matt Colville shill. Less so now, but like, you know. I just think that's cooler, even though I was fine with legendary resistances. At the point where we left off, Scorpion King was very hurt. One of the players who's playing a ranger, but they wanted to be a dragon rider, and it was my suggestion to play like a certain type of ranger. So they have a dragon, and they like really got up in the king's face, and the player even like pinned the Scorpion King's tail to it, managed to do so, losing his rapier in the process, which will be have a funny aside for in a minute. But there had been some really epic moves that were going on. So when we picked up this Saturday, it was going to be, I felt, pretty quick. We ended on the Scorpion King's turn, and I decided, okay, he's going to eat the rest of his dropped scorpion swarms. He's going to recover some health from them because he's also capable of doing that. But it's not going to be that much. It's like half of the health of the scorpion swarm. So, okay, there are like 6 scorpion swarms out. He's going to get back 60 hit points, which my players are level 9. They're doing damage like crazy. That should be just enough for him to like hang on for like, a final move or so. It's his turn. And he basically scuttled out. He devoured them in a horrific display, and then he went on his stinging frenzy like I had planned. So far, he was like claw, claw, snip, snip, tail, but it was just 3 tails, just whipping around. And at least one player like tried to use a special ability to like neutralize one of their attacks. I forget what ability they used, but the Dragon Rider player has an ability where he can like buff someone's AC, and when players are stepping in to try to defend other players, that always feels good. Makes the moment feel suitably serious. So the Scorpion King whipped its tail around and was trying to sting everybody to death, and like one last hurrah, and the players basically banded together, defended as well as they could, and then killed it. The final blow was it getting dazed by psychic ability that the Dragon Rider also has, and he like slacked where he was, and then someone hit it, bringing him like closer to death, and then the final blow was like him falling off, and then the barbarian splitting it as it like came down with a triumphant blow. And then afterwards somebody pointed out, you're wielding a hammer right now, that had to be super brutal. He was like, oh yeah. And it was like, wow, it's really brutal, with like righteous thunder just plow. It dripped its acidic blood over the stone, and some of it ate away at the stone, revealing the stairs down. People were hurt. They were like, all right, we really do need a long rest now. And because I keep track of time, uh, I was like, well, technically you have 3 hours of game time before you can long rest. You can either hole up in here, or you can, I didn't say, or you can go back out and like rest outside the dungeon in that collection of tents with like merchants and people who I described and who you interacted with briefly. But like they didn't do that. They were like, okay, we'll hole up here. Our barbarian's strong, or rather the barbarian player is like, I'm going to break these columns and I'm going to place them in front of the entrance to this room. And then there was a little bit of scouting that was done. One of the players I gave, or rather one of the players looted these Hydra's teeth, which he used during the fight. It's always so good when players finally use the stuff you give them, isn't it? So he had some skeleton warriors, and he was like, I'm going to have the skeleton warriors scout the stairs that we found just to like find out. And they did that. And they were like, they basically found out those are the stairs down. Okay, they'll guard there. We're blocking off this here. It was still like 3 hours. So I was like, okay, in the process of you trying to block yourselves in, I'm going to roll for some random encounters. I finally got one that I was excited about, but it didn't end up amounting to much, but it didn't have to. It might be back. I rolled a group of undead, which tried to like come in on them, but they were able to take care of them pretty easily. They're strong, it's no big deal. But the one that I was excited about was there's an encounter on my random encounters that's just the Black Scorpion Gang from Yu-Gi-Oh! And for whatever that's worth, it's another group of adventurers, is how I'm doing it in here. Um, if you've seen, there's a joke clip from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX where a guy doing a Christopher Walken impression, and he's dressed in like leather armor, and he's got like shoulder length purple hair, does this thing where he summons a card, like how it happens in that show. He summons a card and he goes, I summon the one and only Don Zalug. And when I say the one and only, I mean it. And then he walks out onto the field because he's summoning himself. That's the Black Scorpion Gang. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, there's a goofball, Tomb Raider-y type group of characters that are Yu-Gi-Oh cards that was like, it'd be cool to have like a rival group of dungeon crawlers as one of the random encounters. A funny thing though, their entrance was kind of comedic. Like the characters heard them on the other side of the door. They noticed one of the skeleton warriors who was guarding that door at the time, and were talking about what they should do about this. Not 10, maybe 20 minutes earlier, the barbarian player had turned to the rest of the people and said, oh, maybe we should have tried talking to the Scorpion King first. Maybe the Scorpion King is the enemy of the guy whose tomb this is, because he is, and I've dropped hints in like lore about that. And he's like, oh, maybe we should have talked to this guy instead of fighting him. And someone was like, well, he started by attacking us first. And that was like a little conversation. Meanwhile, we have these goofball rival characters come in, and no one wants to talk to him. They want to scare him off. They end up puppeting the Scorpion King's body to get the remaining scorpions to attack those dudes. And they just end up running off. And this is something that I have noticed, and I'm thinking maybe I should remember for the next campaign that I run. At least the barbarian player seems awfully keen to talk to or otherwise socialize with like villains they run into. Uh, Goofball silly guys? No, 6 scorpions on them. Scorpion, half man, half scorpion monstrosity that like nearly kills our monk in like one touch. Maybe we should try talking to him a little more. I don't know. He will also lightly flirt with like villainous like boss women. But as someone who approached Baldur's Gate 3 and then took one look at Korga and went, ooh, and then got disappointed when the game was like, no, I understand. At least I understand that aspect of it. But it's kind of funny who players want to talk to and don't want to talk to, though let it be known, my players do talk to people. They interact. They know that the enemies that I deploy will oftentimes have their own motivations and things, and you can talk to them. It doesn't work all the time, but it will work more. It will work enough that it's worth paying attention to, and I feel like they get that, even as I am making a joke about goofballs, fuck them. Maybe it's because they're rivals, or they're looking for treasure like them. They decided, fuck them. But anyway, they dealt with the 2 random encounters that they got. They blocked themselves in. I rolled for other random encounters during this time, and if they had not had that tussle with like the demon that can go like in and out of stone, then maybe blocking themselves in wouldn't have mattered so much if I had rolled it. But like, no. I rolled for some more random encounters while they were resting. The random encounters I got couldn't feasibly get in where they're at, which is part of securing yourself. It felt good that one of the players, when I said you need to hole yourselves up somewhere, was like, well, there are a lot of defensible places. He played D&D back in the old days, so he's been paying attention to like defensible spaces, which I like, even though they just plopped down in the boss room and were like, we'll just do it here. But like, whatever, they managed. So they did that. They got loot. They tried to command the little scorpion swarms to bring them loot, and laughed when I narrated about how, okay, you wear the body of the Scorpion King and command these baby scorpions to like bring the loot up to you from the little pits around the room. So you just basically watch them trying to get their backs into it and like trying to scoot it up, but they can't because it's too heavy. And everybody's like, okay, fine. Then clear out. We'll do it. And they got their stuff and they looked at the stuff. The aside about the Dragon Rider player's rapier that I wanted to make was earlier in this floor, I had placed among the loot a +1 rapier because I thought, oh, the Dragon Rider player, I'm pretty sure, has a mundane weapon still. And like, that's pretty long. He's level 9, but he's got like other stuff, so it's okay. But when it came up, he wasn't interested in it. And he was like, that's not better than the weapon that I have right now. And I internally thought, oh no, I didn't know. Is his weapon already +1? Oh man. So we get to here, and he's like, I'm going to reclaim my rapier. Is it okay? And I said, well, if it wasn't magical, it wouldn't be okay. Only for him to go, it's not magical. And I go, oh, well, then you find it like in half, because he stabbed it into the Scorpion King's like tail, and he tried to like pin it, which he did. For the final stinging frenzy, I had the boss like rip his tail free, but it did damage to him. And on top of that, it was going to like do a little bit of damage, dribbling some of his own caustic acid onto himself every time he attacked. And I felt like that was pretty good. Like, you pinned it, and so he had to overcome your pin instead of just, well, he just ignores it, which would have been a bad way to go. So I basically told him, well, you find your rapier, but it's in 2 pieces. But internally I was thinking, hey, hold on. Why did you not take that other rapier? Why did you say that your gear was better than the thing you found if this is mundane and the other one was +1? I didn't say that out loud because I really hate the idea of there being loot that you're supposed to take. Something that a GM that I play with does that drives me nuts is he does a little better about this now, but he will have gear that certain people are supposed to take, and I really hate that. I think that ruins for me it ruins the fun of like finding gear if it's too sculpted, if it's too not convenient, but like I like feeling like the world is a real place, and that's really important to me. And thus, I really don't like when something is, this is here for you. And so, even if I put stuff in loot that I think will be good or appreciated by a certain person, I also put loot down thinking, hoping that, knowing that anyone can pick this up. They will decide what they want to do with it, and that's fine. And that's got to be fine. But I was here thinking, hold on, if you have a mundane rapier, you could have taken that magic one. What were you doing? I didn't ask because I didn't want him to feel pressured. But I was like, that's fucking weird. And I'm thinking maybe he means like the fucking greatsword that he also has. The player's a gnome. Don't tell anybody. I should be telling him like, well, you attack with disadvantage because you're small and using that big weapon. But this is like one time where like people are having fun and I'm like, whatever. I won't worry about it, I guess. So maybe he was thinking about that and not the rapier he has? I don't know. Anyway, they killed time identifying their items. Some people like were immediately interested. I looked up what good items are for barbarians, and one suggestion was, some boots that fly. And I thought, no, that's kind of fun. And that's an item that's good for literally anyone. Being able to fly, pretty good for anybody. I put it in there, and the barbarian not only spotted it, but also had the thought of, wow, nothing can get away from me if I wear these. So that was fun. It's fun when you, as a GM, nail it. I'm not I'm not terrible, but I don't think I'm great at like loot giving, and it's definitely something that I need to develop. But anyway, people identified the loot that they got, sitting around looking at them. They then eventually got to the point where they could long rest, and then they long rested and were fully recovered, and they're like, "All right, now it's time to go down to floor 2." Uh Windy Pops, which thank you for joining us, says limitless flying for sure going to make some puzzles a bit easier to crack, but yeah, very fun for the character. Well, it's not unlimited flying. It is like you click your heels together and then you have 60 feet of flight speed for I think an hour. So not unlimited, but yes, a very big and a very fun tool for combat. It will definitely make puzzles trickier to deploy, but also they're level 9. I'm okay with that. Let's make some big plays. Um, the barbarian also makes a habit of like eating things that they kill, which is very barbarian appropriate. So I also, and it's going to factor in later, which is why I mention it. I this time told him, hey, in addition to needing to make a Constitution save, you eating this thing, you will get like an acid spit for like the rest of the day that you can like do as a bonus action. It's like some major acid reflux. And that should be fun. And he immediately started having fun, which is relevant. Having fun with that, which is relevant to what happened next. They go down the stairs to the next level and they get in front of this big double stone door. A set of stone double doors. Oh, funny. Yeah, that's pretty cool bonus to give for eating weird creatures. I thought so. Thank you, Windy Pops. They get to this door. I think they end up like knocking on it for whatever reason. But somehow they start trying to communicate with the people who are behind the door. Now, they don't know because they haven't seen it, but behind this door is a circular chamber, and it's got like it's actually got five enemies in it, but I will also get to that. And the enemies of this floor are basically like the Magi from the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie. They're here to guard over this place and make sure that Achmet Set, Sorcerer King, never rises again. But they also at one point in time were pledged to his service. So they end up introducing themselves as people who serve him and seal him. And in classic like player haze fashion, the players only really lock on to like one part of that they like serve him. Uh, they more or less just try to ask them like, "Hey, open the door, like let us through." And these people are pretty unbending. It's one of the few times we're trying to talk to characters isn't really going to do much unless you get particularly creative. And so they basically through the door are like, "Hey, let us through, come on," and the others are basically like, "No, we're not doing that, and we're gonna kill you if you come through here. Uh, we don't care." The bard basically tried to say, "It's blocked in the other way. We can't get out the other way. Come on, let us through." And like that didn't work. They were like, "We don't care about your lives." Like, no. So at that point, they were like, "Okay, fine." The barbarian player decides that it would be fun to acid eat through the stone double door, which okay, fine. I had intended for part of the combat challenge in the room beyond to be that there's an alarm rope that one of the enemies will pull and it will set off an alarm on like the next room, and it could potentially cascade and make things a little trickier if you don't do it immediately. So it's just kind of funny. It's an example of players engaging with something like, okay, well, you're slowly barfing a hole into the door. So someone eventually rings the alarm. A little bit of reinforcements are going to be there. I don't like narrate that. Maybe I should have. I don't know. They didn't know yet. So whatever. They eventually barf a hole. A hole is eventually barfed into the door, enabling them to like get through. But because it's the door, it gets really jammed up, which is something that happens, but I'm not gonna lie, uh maybe a little unfun. Like it made me think I need to think more about what enemies will do when people are kind of blocked into the door and we get like into choke points. I think that was really it for me. Also, because I thought it was thematic, I hadn't written that any of the enemies had like ranged weapons, even though I'm fully aware that pretty much every or a lot of enemies have like ranged options. And in this instance, I ended up like bullshitting one enemy having like a dagger that like they throw. But like it was really clustered and incongested. The players were fighting. In here, there were originally just four dudes that are bare chested. They got like the little skirts or whatever you want to call them. Dudes that are buff. They've got a big sword and like a jackal headed mask. And they basically fight their lycanthropes. But at this level, that doesn't really mean much. But it might mean something this coming week. We'll see. But it doesn't mean that much because when you're a were creature, you can only be damaged by silver or magical weapons. At this level, everybody's got some kind of access to that kind of stuff, so it's basically not a problem. Uh, though it could be. So they're crammed. Two people are crammed in this doorway. Other people are trying to move up. The monk player is really getting use out of his "I can run along walls" and things that he recently got. He likes it. I think once the monk hits like eighth or ninth level, they can like run along walls and they can run over water and other weird surfaces. So the monk it's like, can I just like run along the wall and like run deeper into the room? Which I said yes. The dragon had to kind of scoot, position head, whatever. Just trying to barf your way into the room. Fun, funny. But enemies got to prepare actions. Someone got to pull the alarm rope, which is going to cascade. I think the whole floor is going to very quickly know that the players are there. So that will change how things go. It's a little congested, but they ended up pushing through well enough, and we left off towards the end of another fight with the four jackal-headed warriors, and then three other dudes who had joined in, or I think four other dudes who had joined in. One who was like an older guy with a pair of swords, and then three other younger dudes who had staves. The way that I'm doing the like warriors in here is that they're like the jackal-headed warriors, which are jackal wares or some kind of lycanthrope that in the past were just tomb guardians that got infected and became their whole own class of warrior. And then I've got like three generations of enemies, only two of which I used in this battle: junior keepers and then veteran keepers. The junior keepers have staves and they can like knock you off balance or stagger you, making you more open to other people's attacks. And then the veteran guys they have this move that I don't think the players have seen yet, where the veteran guys can like step in and they basically have the parry thing that some enemies get, where you can increase your AC by 3 or 2 or whatever. But these guys get it only to protect other people. So I wanted a cool moment where one of the other people is about to like take an attack, and then that dude just comes in and like parries for them. And if the parry fails, he just takes the damage instead of like successfully parrying. So he still covers for people. That didn't come up yet, but we've got like the rest of this level for it to come up. Though the level is shorter than the first one, because I have planned this level kind of like a gauntlet. More detail than maybe you need, but it's my stream. Because after this circular place where they're fighting dudes, it's going to be short hallway, and it's going to split between the way of the warrior and the way of the assassin. And there are going to be these murals, one of them depicting like the warriors fighting on behalf of Pharaoh Akhmetset, and then the other way is going to have a mural that depicts these like people, these dudes, these assassin dudes becoming snake-like and embracing this like dark snake god. Which wraps back to something that I totally forgot. In addition to the initial 4 jackal guards that are in this room, there is also, or there was supposed to be, also this snake assassin guy that would pop out and eat the light that was in the room, and then it would get like sneak attacks and it would do assassiny things, just like sneak attack, bunch of damage. I totally forgot about that guy. Like, completely. This whole fight was going on, and I was trying to adjust to, like, okay, how are these enemies going to engage with the players if they're, like, kind of stuck at the doors? And I was trying to remember something else, too, because a unique trait that all the warrior guys have is whenever they see one of their comrades go down, everybody who's still up gets an extra dice of damage on their attacks, which is foreshadowing for the final guy in the way of the warrior, who's just going to have a bunch of dice if you killed your way through this part of the floor, which I have had some reservations about because, well, I think, oh yeah, that's cool and it's foreshadowed. There is also a part of me that goes, hey, if they're rigid enemies that are really like not cool with talking things out, is it really okay to have the final boss get stronger the more of them you kill? Is that not maybe could that not be viewed as like an unfair trap or punishment? And it's just a thought I've had. I'll take it under advisement. But for right now, it stays, damn it. Totally forgot the assassin dude that was lurking under the sand. I saw a GIF or a video once of someone running a wooden pole over some sand and like a snake popped out. And I thought that'd be cool. So now the Forgotten Assassin is going to be some world building. That assassin is going to like pop out and ambush them once this fight is over. And I have some justification in my head about the sect of assassins and the sect of warriors don't get along. And that's why the assassin waited until all the fighting was done to ambush you. And certainly not because I forgot that he was hiding. Certainly not. Yeah, mistakes into miracles. Mistakes into miracles. Anyway, so hopefully that'll go well. And while the fight was going fine, it did make me think, one, I've kind of forgotten one of my own principles that I got from a Justin Alexander blog post. And two, am I going too hard on extra details for the enemies? And is that hampering my ability to run things correctly? I am in a game of Shadow Dark RPG, and one thing that I appreciate is its simplicity because it's really easy, especially with my phone keeps going off. I don't know what that's about, and maybe one day I'll learn. What I really like is that sometimes it feels like in 5th edition, people go too crazy with special abilities. Like, I need to staple like 50 special abilities to this enemy so that it's strong enough to compete. And in my opinion, what that really does is you just forget most of its special abilities, and then the enemy doesn't serve up anyway. In this fight, I have the individual unique things that the different warriors can do. And because the warriors train and fight together, all the warriors have pack tactics. So they get advantage if they've got dudes that are close to them, which I remembered. I remembered the pack tactics. I was able to look for the parry, even though no opportunities came for that. And of course, the staff, the junior keepers, the junior warriors have like their unbalanced thing that they try to do. And the veteran dudes, I was trying to have them like role play with the others and calm them because the younger guys were kind of nervous about this first fight that they're in. I don't know. I don't think they're super detailed, but at the same time, forgetting that assassin gave me pause. And now I'm wondering, is this too much? Is this too much overall? Should I, in the future, try to specifically have fights where only 1 or 2 gimmicks are present at a time? I think I might be overreacting a little bit in the classic way where you run a session of something and then go, "Oh, do I suck at this actually?" Classic GM doubts, Um yeah. So the players are going to, when we resume, the players have a little bit of that fight that they need to deal with. There was a point where the monk player took the single veteran warrior hostage and tried to get the other enemies to back down, which was interesting, kind of plays into what I'm talking about, players like interacting with enemies. Even though the warriors are sworn like to their oaths hardcore, I felt like since the junior warriors are a little more uncertain, I would roll for them, but the jackal warriors would not stop. And I rolled well enough that the junior warriors stood down, but the jackal warriors who were still up refused. And then the monk guy basically like put his blades to the veteran guy's throat and was like, "If you don't stand down, I will kill him." The juniors, I rolled and they folded. So the juniors stood down. The jackal warrior said, "No, our oaths are strong." And then the monk guy just killed the guy. And now they're still all fighting. Which runs into another problem that might be with this thing. I like these guys, and I feel like killing your way through these guys is kind of bad, or at least kind of grim. I feel a little bad about it, and I probably then should not have made them this way. I don't know. Like, sometimes as a GM, if you're me, you make enemies, and then you're like, I like you, you're really cool. And then comes the time where the players are going to slaughter them, and you're like, "Mm, how did I forget that this part was going to happen? I knew it was going to happen, but I did it anyway." This is actually almost way worse because my original concept for this level was actually that there would be this whole community of tomb keepers down here, and there were the warriors, but there would also be like children and wives and things like that. And then if players were carving through them, then it would be kind of a thing where they would try to protect themselves and try to send their children away, and whatever. And I had to stop myself and go, hey man, I know that's your original concept and that sounds interesting on paper, but it sounds like it'd be really rough to play through for anybody with like half a conscience. And I was like, yeah, actually, that's not what did it. I should stop lying. What really got me to change it was me looking at myself and going, hey, man, you told everybody that this dungeon crawl would be a hack and slash with little to no role play. Do you really want to put in a scenario like this that kind of violates that? And I then told myself, you're right. You're right. I should not violate the expectations that I set. But even like rolling it back a little bit, I don't know, it's kind of tough, or feels a little tough, a little mixed. So we left off with that fight dwindling. It's gonna conclude. When I was talking about, I think I've forgotten some principles of mine. What I was really talking about was once upon a time, I read and one of the blog posts by Justin Alexander, famous tabletop blog guy, and he had a blog where he talked about how a majority, like 60% of the enemies that your players face, should be weaker than them, and they should just be engaging or challenging in other ways, because the closer in strength the enemy or the fight is to the party, the longer it's going to take. And if you think about it on a cinematic level, Indiana Jones doesn't have a prolonged fight scene with every Nazi he fights. He knocks out most of them and has the prolonged fight with like the big guy at the end. Likewise, a lot of the fights that the players have should be weaker than them, but challenging in other ways. The tactics that they use, the setup, but not every fight should be the end all be all, or else fights are going to drag. And I really latched onto this advice. And the moment that I tried it out, it really, my game felt a lot better, because I was at the point where if a combat started, it's going to take the rest of the session. And it would pressure me to not have combat happen, which is silly at times where combat is appropriate, right? Like if I use this example all the time, but if if two players are sneaking through a castle and they run into some guards and some guards finally spot them, I should not be trying to avoid combat, because those guards are going to be mega guards that will take like the rest of the session to fight. And that doesn't make any sense. Story wise, it's a drag. System wise, it's just bad overall. And I think I've forgotten that. I'm kind of pumping enemy hit points and armor class, I think, a little too much. Like, this is the second session where we've left off in the middle of a fight. The first session, it was a boss fight. That's more understandable. The second session, this is just like an opening fight to the level, which should be dangerous and should be impactful, but it should not be a knockdown, drag out affair like I'm kind of making it. Like, the players are about to win, but even in the group text chat that we have for the game, like there was a player, the Paladin player couldn't make it that week, and they were telling the Paladin player, hey man, you got a lot of healing to do. A couple of us took a ton of damage. And I was like, I think I'm going a little overboard with individual fights, and I need to scale it back. I need to remember that not every fight should be the end-all be-all. And I'm going to focus on that more going forward. I think I've forgotten one of the principles that I got from that blog, from that guy who, other than trying to erase Janelle Jaquays from his history anyway, pretty good and pretty renowned for his advice for good reason. There are like 2 or 3 things that I read like back to back in his blog that changed my game forever for the better. Anyway, so that's where the campaign stands for now. They were in the middle of that fight. Next week, or this Saturday, assuming they don't surprise me, we're going to conclude that fight. They're going to get their chance to choose Way of the Warrior, Way of the Assassin. I have some map stuff that I want to tie down a little more cleanly, and I think I want to make some revisions and some additions to the level. Like, I want to put in loot more prevalently throughout the level, and I also want to, I want to vary the enemies on the assassin side, because right now I just have one snake assassin type guy, and then I just reference other enemies in my notes. So I need to have that prepared, because they're going to get to choose which way they go. I basically have everything for the Way of the Warrior. The Way of the Assassin notes are looser. I want to tie that up, and I'm going to. This week, I got a little more time this week than normal. This week is like one of my off weeks. I work less, though I don't work a ton to begin with, which is great, but also bad. It's great, but it's not great, basically. Sometimes I talk about other stuff and go on other diatribes, but I think that's pretty good. So now for the next thing. I am going to switch over to Twitch, and I'm going to try and play Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm going to try to stream myself playing Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not sure if my computer will handle both the game and OBS, but we're going to find out. And if we don't, I have an alternate game. And if everything crashes, I don't know, I'll just get on session prep more, I guess. So, cross your fingers for me. And we'll see how that goes. Maybe see you there. There's a link to my Twitch in the description of this, if you go looking for it. All right, let's see.